I'm Mindy Peterson, and this is Enhance Life with Music, where we explore the ways music can make our lives better and spotlight the resources you can use to enhance your life with music. I am really excited about today's conversation because I know it's going to clarify for me something that has puzzled me for most of my life. And it's a question I've wanted to ask someone since I first started this podcast 6 years ago, but I've never found the right person to ask until recently. I was speaking with a guest on this show about a different topic. And over the course of our conversation, I realized this is the perfect person to ask my question. So here's the question I've been wanting to ask, the question that's been mystifying me. And it's so many times I will listen to a song. I'm probably just enjoying the melody and the overall vibe of the song. But then I start to pay closer attention to the lyrics and realize I have no idea what this person is talking about. The lyrics make absolutely no sense at all. And I'm wondering, how on earth did this person come up with the words? Occasionally, I've read a biography of a musician, and then the biography, there will be some backstory of certain song lyrics. And I think, oh, okay, well, that makes a little bit more sense. But I also feel like, really, should I really need to do investigative journalism to be able to make sense of song lyrics? Enter today's guest. Mike Errico is the author of the book Music, Lyrics, and Life, a field guide for the advancing songwriter. He teaches songwriting at universities including Yale, Wesleyan, and NYU's Clive Davis Institute of Recorded Music. He, as I mentioned, was a recent guest on this podcast, speaking about his book and the songwriting process, what makes a song a hit, and how to get started writing songs. I'll put a link in the show notes to that conversation because if you have any interest in the songwriting process, you'll definitely want to listen to that conversation and check out his book. Starting out, first of all, Mike, welcome back to Enhance Life with Music.
Thank you so much for having me again. It's one thing to be invited once, but to be invited a second time is it's even a more difficult hurdle. So I'm honored.
Well, in pretty close succession, too. I mean, when we had our conversation last, it was pretty recent, and we sort of got going down this bunny trail, and I thought, oh, man, this is the guy. I need to ask this question. But I do want to dedicate a full episode to this because this has been a big mystery for me. So I'm kind of feeling like Nancy Drew right now, the Hardy Boys. We're going to, kind of solve this mystery a little bit. Starting out, I should probably clarify that this conversation is probably somewhat genre specific to pop rock music, because when you think about it, opera music is telling a story. Country music, I feel like, is generally telling a story. Sacred music, lyrics are typically pretty clear cut and have a obvious purpose or intention. But when you get to pop and rock music, there's certain songs that make total sense to me, like Stevie Wonder, I Just Called to Say I Love You. Totally get it, totally on board. But then there's so many pop and rock songs that I am completely mystified. It makes no sense to me at all. A lot of Beatles music, I feel like, fits this category. A lot of Elton John songs, and I know he didn't actually write the lyrics, but I did read Rocket Man, and that was one of the biographies that I read that I felt like I got some clarity on certain songs, like Tiny Dancer. I think they had an explanation of some of those lyrics. And you'll find this interesting. I watched a Phil Collins documentary. It was really good. It was called Face Value. And he actually says in there about the song In the Air Tonight that he just made up the words spontaneously because he liked the sound of them. He didn't have any meaning at all in mind. So I heard that and I'm like, okay, there's some legitimacy to my puzzlement here. A more recent, more current genre or artist, Owl City has a song called Fireflies, which that song the lyrics don't make any sense to me. I will preface this by saying I have been told many times that I take things very literally. And I know that's totally true, but I also feel like surely I'm not the only person who has wondered this. So, Mike, can you help us understand this mystery? Why does this happen? It sort of feels like a waste of lyrical real estate. So I'm wondering if that's really the case or if there's something else going on beneath the surface here. Help us out.
That is very interesting that you put it that way. It's funny. I have been spending this summer, putting together a class specific to lyric. And I have found,
So this is a new class that you're going to be teaching.
yes,
Okay.
and it'll be probably spring of 2026 will be the beginning of it.
Okay.
And I have found that the rabbit trail, is that what you called it? I like that. Has many branches that
Okay.
that branch out, and it makes you think that perhaps there's more than one rabbit around here somewhere.
Maybe
Um,
there's a rabbit and a mole and
I think
a gopher.
there's a whole lot of digging going on in the garden, and a lot of these. I think the questions that you're talking about lyrically have many different ways to approach them, and I've been trying to track these things down. I've been by like reading and documentaries like the one you were talking about.
Yeah.
So here are a couple of ways of approaching why lyrics are the way that they are. One is, what is the intent of the writer, right? So like historically back in the day, back in not it's not back in the day, it's many 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 weeks before back in the day, uh we had a society that didn't read. So the way to put news across was song, was literally oral tradition set to music, right?
So that
uh,
would be sort of like history.
it,
Teaching
it was it
history,
was it
passing
was his
along
yes.
history and culture
It
to the
was
next
history,
generation.
yes, history, culture, religion, mythology, and troubadours, like in the 12th century and such, were being paid by royalty to write songs that made them look good, so that they would go into the bars and be like, "Oh, the guy who you give all your money to is really a great guy," whatever, and they would sing a song, whatever, and that's how the news would get out there. But all of these things were news oriented or narrative in some sort of way, right? So storytelling, as you talked about, really is the older of these types of forms. So you have the storytelling type thing, which persists, and it persists in lots of different types of genres. But there are other intentions for an artist. And here's the other rabbit hole, is the composer who doesn't write lyrics at all, or composers like, I don't know, like Bach or something like that, and it would just be like amen over and over and over again, right? And the reason why is because that wasn't the point. Like, the point was, yes, they had to get something across for a church or whatever, but they were not lyrics first people. So they would have an incantation, or they would just pull something from the Bible, and the real art and the love came from melody and from harmony and from pulling emotion in a non-lyrical way, right? So that would be what someone less generous, not yourself, but someone less generous might say is a waste of real estate.
Okay.
um Amen or whatever is not, or Gloria, in excelsis Deo or whatever, is not a waste of real estate. But what it is a repeated mantra that gives them the time to do what they do best, right?
Sure. Well, in that
Right.
situation too, they're probably just emphasizing that amen, so be it, but
Right.
also using that as a vehicle for utilizing the human instrument, the voice,
Yes.
without
Uh,
any distraction at all about the specific words.
well, that's interesting that you put it that way, because it's about the distraction, because really what it's about is focus. Where do you want things to
Mm.
be focused? Songwriting is like, it's several things coming at you at once. And if all three of them are clamoring for attention, what you get is a mess. You'll get like a chaotic sort of situation.
And when you say all three things, what are you
Oh,
talking
I'm so
about?
sorry. Like, melody, harmony, lyric,
Okay.
rhythm,
Okay.
tempo. All these different things are coming at you at once, and I think people will either play to their strengths, or they'll decide what to spotlight. Right? So they'll spotlight, this is a story song, so what I'm going to do with my arrangement musically is to pare it back so that the words will come up front. Or the opposite, or you're Tchaikovsky and you're like, you know what? No words. This is a musical scenario because that's what I do. So moving on, into the 19th, 20th century, you begin to get mixes of all sorts of things. You get like the operetta, you get Gilbert and Sullivan, you get all these different types of things, which are still telling stories, but then you're mixing it in America with things like slave songs, minstrelsy, what they called society verse, which is stuff in New York, getting into the Tin Pan Alley era, jazz, Dixieland, and stuff like that. So you get mixes of high register kind of words and vernacular. So we don't think of things like, don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing, as like, we don't think of it as groundbreaking, but a lot of those things actually sort of were, because they were bringing the vernacular into the conversation of what songwriting is all about. So again, it's the intent starts moving. And I'm sorry, these are a lot of rabbit holes, but like, I think that's one direction it starts going. And the artist's intent, third of all, is, storytelling, spotlighting music and not lyric is the second one. And third one was articulated really well by David Bowie, which was the song is not finished when it is presented, right? So the song is presented as a unfinished situation that the listener is able to inhabit and finish for themselves. And therefore it becomes something that is intimate, personal, and more real than a story song. Because it's actually now has elements of their own lives inside of it.
So would
right?
that be a situation where he's purposely making the lyrics to be pretty abstract so that people can sort of apply it to their own specific situation and make it personalized to them?
Yes, I think that's true. And he used a few techniques to do that. Famously, he used this thing called cut-ups, which is like he would tell a story or whatever on a piece of paper and cut the thing up into sentences, put them in a hat, and then pull them out sort of at random.
Okay. That's
And
sort of
that
like
would
that
become,
magnetic game. It's like poetry,
yes,
fridge poetry or something
that
like
is
that.
exactly what we have it on our dishwasher. We don't have it on the
Okay.
refrigerator, but yes, exactly that. That's an example of cut-ups. Later on, he put a computer program, or he got someone to create a program that would serve him these random cut-up words that he would input.
This is
Um,
pre-AI. Now it's
yeah,
really easy to
definitely pre-AI. And I'm going back to the thing where you said it was a waste of real estate, because it's not a waste of real estate, but you certainly could waste real estate if you wanted to, right?
So what's the
I
difference between
well,
wasting it and not wasting it? If both situations are nonsensical, how do you
right.
decide which one is a waste and which one isn't?
I think it's intent. And like, when I sit there as a teacher, I'll listen to stuff and I'll be like, what are you talking about? And they're like, what do you think I'm talking about? And I'm like, you know what? I think you're trying to pull one over on me. I'm not 100% sure that your intent is honest. I can't prove that, of course. And maybe it's me who's too like sort of blockheaded to sort of figure it to be open enough to some sort of interpretation or whatever. But I always watch that, because I'm always skeptical of that kind of, it's not an excuse, I guess. It's more of an explanation of why a song is not telling a story, like back in the day. I also bring it back, and you can tell I'm like in the middle of researching this, but like, I started thinking about art, like visual art, from like the early 20th century, where it's like, romantic and figurative and all this kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it becomes impressionist, and then it becomes abstract and
Yeah.
Dada and abstract expressionist. And then it's like, pow, like, you know, the white canvas, the garbage on the floor that's
The
selling for
banana that was duct taped
the
to,
banana
yeah.
duct tape to the is such a fantastic, yes. And you're like, wow, it's a banana. And like, other people are like, you know what? It's a freaking banana. Like,
Well,
cut
and
it
if
out.
listeners have no idea what we're talking about, Google it because it's a real thing. And
Yeah,
you
it
know,
was a
One thing there's one thought that's coming into mind as we're talking about this too, is it sounds like from how you describe the history leading up to more 19th, 20th century, music historically has been more functional,
Yeah.
whether it's a lullaby or passing on oral tradition and history, things like that. And even chants, like monks chanting or Gregorian chant, there was some function there and some purpose there compared to this nonsensical lyrics that we're talking about, which may have intent, may not have intent. But one thing that I'm thinking of is Maslow's hierarchy of need.
Yeah.
Way back when, people were much lower on that hierarchy. Like, they were looking for survival. They were looking for
Yeah.
food, shelter. And I would say in more recent generations, most of us who are listening to the music we're talking about are probably in a position where we have a lot of those basic needs met. And we're
Mhm.
able to focus a little bit more on self-enlightenment and, well, what do I feel about this? And I'm processing my history and my trauma of how my parents didn't give me peanut butter and jelly when I
Right.
wanted it. They gave me. So I wonder if that plays into it a
You
little bit
had to bring
too.
it back to the kids. Um, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And I should say that part of the survival back then also had to do with society and social bonds and social networking, which meant,
Mm,
well, religious things or mythology or social connection.
sure.
And all of the social connection was sort of adorned with the songs that met those particular times of year or the solstice or the, birth of
Yeah.
Christ or the birth of whatever, like all that,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
That's an
So
interesting point because here now in the US, for sure, we're so independence minded and individualistic. It's more about me and what makes me unique and what makes me individual and
yeah,
less about what makes me a part of this community.
yeah. And yet there are definitely patriotic red lines that are laid out. There continue to be guidelines for these types of things, and it's also the abstractions also open up types of meaning that we can't get to with actual language. I feel like language there's an end point
Mm,
to what language can get to, and then even poetry gets you a little further, I think, down the road. But if
hmm.
you ask a poet,
Sure.
like, what would I want? You know, it is to aspire to the wordlessness and the emotion of music.
Sure.
Uh, so if you're not weighing down the lyric with meaning, then you are opening it up to a possibility that can't actually be expressed in either medium, right?
Hmm.
So you're just like out there in the deep water, wherever that kind of place is.
Well, and there's certainly plenty of poetry too that I read, and I think, I have no idea what they just said. Like, that doesn't make any
Right.
sense to me. So that's interesting that you bring that point up. When we spoke last, one thing that sort of took us down this path was we were kind of heading in the direction of examining the purpose of a song. And we were kind of talking about how sometimes music lyrics are purposely abstract because it's part of the therapeutic process. And we talked about the organization Creative Vets and how they work with Nashville singer-songwriters and
Yeah.
veterans who have experienced trauma. And the two groups work together to come up with a song for each veteran that expresses whatever it is that they want to express. And usually, they don't want to go into graphic detail about the specifics of what they experience. They want to keep it more abstract because it's just so painful to go into specifics. And so
Yeah.
keeping it abstract allows them to go as deep or shallow as they're able to in that moment. And it also is a way, at whatever level they want to go into it with the lyrics, it's a way for them to share their experience with their loved ones without, again, having to go into the graphic details of exactly what they experience. So in a situation like that, the lyrics are purposefully abstract. Like Richard Casper, who I interviewed for that Creative Vets episode, gave the experience of the lyrics that a veteran wrote about, I lost my mind by the side of the highway. And in his specific situation, he literally had gone over an explosive device and experienced a traumatic brain injury, and had no short-term memory left. So he literally felt like he lost his mind on the side of the highway, but somebody else could listen to that song and apply it to their own unique situation.
Absolutely.
In a variety of ways.
Yeah. I pulled over at the Dunkin' Donuts and started crying. Would be, I lost my mind on the side of the highway.
Sure,
right?
sure.
I would be able to enter that lyric
Yep.
in my own particular way.
Yes.
Right. If it were it's funny, if it's too specific, it kind of kills it in a way, because it chokes it of its possibilities, right? When you're overly, it's almost like it's a different art. It's like the art of not journalism, but like nonfiction. Like, for some reason, my cousin, I have a cousin, Joe, who is obsessed with the song "The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald."
Oh, okay.
If you're familiar with that, yeah.
I grew up in Michigan, and I now live in Minnesota, so it's like Lake Superior country.
Right. I figured. And it's kind of a meme a little bit on socials, but it goes through like the weather patterns and where they could have gone at 13 miles away. They could have made it. It is a very detailed situation about the wreck of this boat in the Great Lakes. And he's very into it. And I think he's very into the mournful telling of that story and the specificity of it. But it's the telling of it that I think breaks his heart, because the way that the artist, Gordon Lightfoot, puts it across gives it color that the language can't. So you can think of like epic, like some of the ancient epic poems were sung, and you can only imagine sort of what did we lose, right? It's like finding something that's been buried for years and the colors are gone, and you get like a sense of its shape, but you don't get like the resonance that might have occurred as a result of it. There's a third, and I think it's a really important part to sort of talk. Well, I don't know what number we're on, but like, there's another part that's important also, is the fact that like, and maybe this is a modern thing, music doesn't have these, isn't constrained by these applications. Sometimes people just want to dance, for crying out loud, right? I don't need a story about a wreck of a boat while dancing at the club or something like that, right? So like, those things are not going to go in, they collide. They're not, that's not a great, the word is prosody, which is like the marriage of the music and lyric. It's not a good use. So by having things that don't entirely make sense, your mind is let at ease. And it's sort of like it's told to take a break and let your rear end take over, right?
So it could be more versatile if there's not a real specificity to the lyrics.
Right. And the best way I've heard of this expressed is through David Byrne. He referred to it as emergent storytelling, which I thought was really interesting. He would start with a rhythm or a track or whatever it is, a band that they're working, whatever, and he will start just saying nonsense, right? Not words, not any, maybe they're words, maybe they're not words, maybe they're sounds. And if they're sounds that are coming out of your mouth, they're most likely vowels. And then what he will do is search for words that might work with the emergent vowel that has shown up. And then perhaps a story will arrive that he did not know he was going to tell. So some of his stuff makes absolutely no sense, but it wasn't intended in the beginning. It's not a failure. It's actually a completely new thing
Huh.
that maybe is arriving, and maybe arriving from a purer place, from a non-analytical kind of place.
Well, I thought it was really interesting. Just 6 months-ish ago, there was an article I read in the New York Times that was basically expressing the exact opposite of what I started this episode, this conversation saying. And it was the article was titled, "Pop Musicians, Please Spare Me the Backstories." And the author says that the power of a lasting song is that it breaks free of its origins. And he or she, I don't remember, was like done with the celebrity narratives.
Sure.
Like when you get so specific like that, yeah, we make the connection. But he says, but enigma dispelled. And so I thought, okay, well, that's a different way to look at it.
That's, and yet all the pressure on the writers is to go on social media and not only give you the backstory, but give you the recording technique and give you the guitar fingerings and give you that perhaps is what or whoever this is railing against. Because what happens is you get no mystery. I think that the mystery of writers and artists is really part of the whole thing. And it's something that social media has really sort of chipped away at. And I think a lot of people miss it. A lot of people miss the idea of like, well, did Robert Johnson really go to the crossroads and make a deal with the devil? Can you imagine like Robert Johnson, like getting on TikTok? Like, I'd like to talk about the rumor that's going around about me going to the crossroads and dying the deal with the devil. That did not actually happen, or, and just like having the whole thing just killed. Like, that is something that happens, I think, regularly now in the interest of content, right, over the song.
One of my favorite ways to enhance my life with music is to play just for fun songs on the piano at the end of the day. My current favorites are ABBA songs and songs from the 80s, like We Are the World. With Sheet Music Direct, I can explore new music, track my favorites, play and download scores anytime from any device. This online treasure trove of digital sheet music is powered by music publisher Hal Leonard and has over 1 million arrangements, ready to view, listen to, and download instantly. Prices start at just 99 cents and include selections for every instrument, genre, and skill level. My family has relied on Sheet Music Direct for years for musical joy and convenience. For an entire musical library at your fingertips, visit sheetmusicdirect.com. So if we look at some of the different purposes that composers of lyrics, songwriters may have for writing some of these abstract lyrics, some may call them nonsensical. One purpose may be to make the song more versatile and expand the possibilities of the song. It applies to different people in different contexts in different ways. It kind of gives people a problem to solve, and they really think about interpreting it and deciphering what this composer meant and where this came from. So that could be one purpose.
It gives it another level, what I mean?
Another purpose, like the Phil Collins situation, where to give a little bit more context to that, in the air tonight, he did say he just made the words up spontaneously because he liked the sound of them. He didn't have any meaning at all in mind. He was also in the midst of a big breakup from his wife at the time. So it was just like this anger and despair and frustration that was just coming out in whatever songs he was throwing together. So that played a part into it too. But he does say that he didn't have any meaning in mind. And actually, I think I saw one of John Lennon's songs too. He said he intentionally wrote the lyrics to be really bizarre, in part to sort of make fun of the fans who are constantly looking for these deep meanings in his lyrics.
I am the walrus.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Because that's another song that makes no sense at all.
Right. I Am the Walrus was made. It's very funny that those two songs that you're talking about are the ones, because the Beatles were tired of everyone reading into everything. And if you watch Get Back, the
I still need to
documentary,
do that. I haven't yet.
well, it's a masterclass in dispelling lyrics a little bit, because Paul McCartney is just sitting there playing the piano and flipping through a magazine, and he's finding words. He's just like, "Oh, that's good. Oh, that's
Oh,
good." Right?
interesting.
Another example, like For the Benefit of Mr. Kite, which is on Sergeant Pepper's, there's literally a poster, and they went through this poster, and that's where the lyrics came from. But I Am the Walrus was them saying, like, we're tired of you guys reading into everything. We're going to purposefully throw something at the wall and throw you off. So there's a little Lewis Carroll.
Mission accomplished.
Totally. In the Air Tonight, the same thing. And yet, I have heard stories that tie all of I Am the Walrus together, what he's really talking about, blah, 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 blah. And I've heard a story about In the Air Tonight, which, like, urban legend or whatever, like, oh, he saw some guy drowning and somebody else wouldn't help him, but Phil doesn't know how to swim or something. Right? So Phil's like sitting there like on the shore going like, I remember, don't worry. Like, and like a whole story is made up of it. And of course he's sitting there like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Sure.
Right. So people will create connections where there are no connections. That's the nature of conspiracy theory, right?
Sure.
And songs sort of work on the same level as conspiracy theory when they're left abstract enough, and it's actually just where our brains go, and we enjoy it. And we, not only that, we think we're the first person to find it also. So it's a personal triumph of some sort that, like, I know the walrus, whatever,
Sure.
So that's a possibility of where, of how these different songs get used.
Well, and we talked about the purpose of sort of personal therapy, whether you're a veteran or you've had trauma in some other way, maybe you've gone through a breakup, whatever it is.
Sure.
You may want to keep words purposefully abstract for some therapeutic reason. Any other purposes that you want to mention that we haven't talked about yet that people may have for keeping those lyrics abstract?
They're all, these are all like the offshoots of the rabbit trails, whatever, is that there's keeping things sort of abstract for your own personal benefit, or, for your own protection, as you say. But then there's also a lot of times code, right? So the people who know what you're talking about. If you know, you know. Absolutely. So there's a lot of code that goes on, jazz or slang from any walk of life. People will be able to talk to each other in a public way that other people are not going to really get. So we get messages sent back and forth.
Interesting.
In that way. Or even just the way you're saying things. To me, like, accents are code as well. Oh. So, like, I'll have a songwriter come into class and just write a really good song, and it's really strong, and it's strong enough that I'm like, if you put a fiddle and a pedal steel guitar on it, and somebody who sang, that's a great country song. And this is somebody who's like straight up from, New York City or something like that. But if you change the code a little bit, the lyric is working, and you can speak to the people who listen to that. So again, there's lyric, and then there's the way the lyric is being presented, and all of it is very codified, and you can play with that if you wanted to. There's one that we haven't gotten around to. Well, we sort of have, but I just want to put another point on it, which is like, there's lots of songs that don't want to make sense, don't mean to make sense, and you're happy that they don't make sense because there's no test at the end of this, right? So, like, you can make an argument for Abracadabra by Lady Gaga being like, there's death or love tonight. There's lots of like signifiers to one way or another, but the title, setting, and the chorus is abracadabra, ama, umama, whatever. And she's like doing, and she does that in so many of her songs. And it's just ina, rura, gaga. She always
Okay.
puts the word gaga in there. She like fits it in somewhere, like a little name check for herself. And they don't mean anything, but they mean plenty, right? At the same time. And we don't have to deal with it in a particularly intellectual kind of way. We can just go to the club and dance to it and repeat it and
Sure.
join in with it.
That makes sense. And that's sort of like a contrast to more like a Bob Dylan song,
Right.
where his lyrics do tend to be very intense and they do require some
Definitely.
interpretation at times, but there typically is a serious meaning to them. It's not just kept abstract for the sake of
Sure.
things light.
Sure. He was also highly influenced by the poets of the time, who were influenced by the modern artists of the time. And there was an abstraction going on. The abstraction of lyric is also a product of its time. And then finally, the number one song this week is Morgan Wallen song. And the lyrics are narrative, coded, and they're really unnerving, actually. There's a lot going on in the song. I may be crazy, but the world is insane, is sort of what he's talking about. So it's real like a social comment that's going on. He sleeps with a 44 under his bed. There's a lot of paranoia that's sort of going on in it. I can't stand it that I can't remember the name of the song. I'm the problem.
Oh, I've heard that one. Yeah. So that includes a lot of these different purposes and intents for the lyrics all in one song.
It really does. And it is it's a more narrative telling of the present moment.
Do you think audiences today expect lyrics to make sense or not make sense? Have we gotten to a point where the vibe and the sound and how viral a song is more important than meaning, or people maybe have a preference for attaching their own meaning to a song?
I think in general, I think lyrics are much more narrative now and much more understandable. I think in the female pop world in particular, I would not date one of them because wow,
Things
the
go
songs
wrong.
that come out are like, wow, I had a relationship and it did not work well. And here's the whole thing. And you can really follow along. And the kinds of insults that are hurled and stuff like that are very knowable, very understandable, right?
Sure.
Hip hop, things like Kendrick Lamar, I feel like my students are sitting there and they love to dive into the double entendres and who is he talking about here and what's he referencing there, and so it's a game for them.
Okay.
There are some pop people that the stuff doesn't mean anything, and they're just looking for something else, some other type of universality, or like you said, like maybe the true intent is theirs and there's no need to really like spell it out because it's my problem, it's not your problem.
Yeah.
Like take my losing my mind by the side of the road line and apply it to your Dunkin' Donuts in your town or whatever.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say some of your students almost make a game out of interpreting some of those double entendres, because I could see that being an appeal too of the lyrics that aren't real clear cut, is it prompts conversation and debate in a friendly, bantering sort of way, in a way that's not binary, like, okay, you're right or I'm wrong. Political conversations can get into that where it's like there's only one way. Whereas debating lyrics of a song can be more of a friendly banter, like, what's better, Android or Apple?
And I think a lot of them they also like to one up each other. Like, oh, that's the second sort of telling of this line. But like if you think about it the other way, he's referencing some previous work of his from a long time ago. And so it's it's a conversation piece, and it's kind of a video game a little bit. It's like or a board game anyway. I think they get a lot of joy out of that. And then there's another part of the lyric, of course, which is the rhythm and like the flow of it as it rolls over time. the ability to do that in a seamless fashion is also incredibly satisfying, whether or not it makes sense. It might not make sense. It might not make sense to you. It might be code. It might be a lot of different things. But like, if it feels good over the timing and over the melody, sometimes that is sufficient.
Oh, this has been so fun going down these rabbit holes with you. And,
oh my God.
And I will have a much more level of tolerance and interest the next time I hear a song, for sure, that has lyrics that I can't quite decipher or make sense out of. Right. Just having some of these different purposes and intents in mind, and as I listen to it.
I would only keep in mind like a little bit of be a little skeptical, because like there are definite charlatans who are just like, I can literally go to my refrigerator and put my refrigerator magnets together and do it and not intend anything, and then tell you that I intended something, and that's the exact telling that that your New York Times person does not want to know about. Right? It either works or it doesn't work. Right.
Yes. And I'll put a link in the show notes to that article too.
Yeah. I need to check that out.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this has been so fun, Mike. Thank you. Usually, as you know, I ask all my guests to close our conversation with a musical ending, a coda, by sharing a song or story about a moment that music enhanced your life. But since you just did that recently, I thought it might be fun to stick with the theme of our conversation and see if you have any personal favorite nonsensical lyric song. Does anything come to your mind that's sort of like a favorite, or maybe just one that immediately comes to your mind?
Well, yes. Well, the one that I love and I talk about sometimes in class is very upbeat also. I think it's a good way to end. It's a song by a 90s R&B act called Black Box, and the song is called Everybody, Everybody. I just love that the chorus just goes everybody, 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 and that's it. And it's everybody, everybody. There's no verb ever. So I don't know what everybody does, but somehow everybody knows. What are they doing? They're dancing. And the rest of the song is giving the verb.
If you know, you know.
If you know, you know.
Thank you so much to Mike Errico for unraveling the mystery behind song lyrics. I hope this conversation inspires you to listen to new or favorite songs with fresh ears and a new appreciation for the stories or sounds behind the words, or for how the words may overlay in their own unique way with your particular story in life. There's a link in the show notes to the YouTube video of Black Box's Everybody, Everybody, as well as a link to Mike's awesome book. I highly recommend it. My first interview with Mike, a transcript of today's conversation, and related episodes you may enjoy. All Enhanced Life with Music episodes are evergreen, so check out the back catalog for more ways that music can make your life better. You can always connect with me on email, mindy@mpetersonmusic.com, Facebook, Instagram, X, or LinkedIn, and by signing up for my monthly e-newsletter. Thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing this show. It's one of the best ways to help us reach new listeners and spread the transforming power of music in everyday life. Until next time, may your life be enhanced with music.